What if a powerful king, after being betrayed, was reborn into a magical world as a simple baby? This story follows Arthur Lewin, an ancient king who gets a second chance. Now, seeking to uncover why he was betrayed and learning about this new world, he must face powerful monsters in his own dark past. Without further ado, let's recap. I never believed in the phenomenon people call the light at the end of the tunnel. Those rare instances where, after near-death experiences, people claim to have seen the light with cold sweat dripping down their faces. Still, here I am in the supposed tunnel, not even knowing how I died. The last thing I recall is being alone in my room. I looked out at the city below, and after that, I felt my body grow heavy as I lay down. I don't know if I was poisoned or murdered. Come on, Gray. Think about it. Many wanted me dead. After all, I was a king. Well, regardless, dwelling on my death is pointless. Ultimately, I can't change it, so there's no choice but to move on. Hopefully, there aren't baby wyverns flying in the sky. Huh? Seems like someone's congratulating a couple. What's that blurry thing in front of me? These are Gray's initial thoughts as he opens his eyes. A man asks his wife to hold someone a bit higher. A woman's voice calls him beautiful, and a man's voice says the baby has his hair. Finally, our protagonist's eyes open fully, revealing a beautiful lady and a young man with big smiles. The girl looks at the guy and, referring to Gray, says they share the same eyes. Seeing the man, the former king assumes he's stern and severe, but rethinks this when the fellow opens his mouth asking the baby to call him Daddy, promptly scolded by his wife, who calls him King, for expecting speech from a newborn. Looking around, everything seems quite ordinary. The house is wooden and uses candles. Something resembling armor parts hangs up. This makes him wonder where on earth he's ended up, realizing he's become a baby. The weeks pass slowly. Though his mother Alice is kind and good-hearted, she holds the family reins. His father is dependable and charismatic, if you overlook his occasional childishness. But even happy to be born into a loving family, his life was filled with hardships he wouldn't wish on his worst enemy. Little control over his limbs, and the inability to manage his needs in this flesh prison. Perhaps years of mental fortitude as a king, a nation's representative, and the tiny spark of hope this was all a dream, were the only things preserving his sanity. It seems he was transported to the past, an archaic period, and he wonders if people carried weapons so casually back then. Various shops line the street, even a woman selling elixir for just 2 coppers, leading him to assume legally traded medicine. His mother comments the boy might be tired and suggests heading home, though the little one isn't keen. Back in his crib, the boy becomes thoughtful. Knowledge is power, and now he's observed his surroundings. That was excellent. But his father arrives and, seeing him, knows what's coming. He picks him up, overjoyed, immediately tossing his son high, panicking his wife, and leaving the poor kid utterly drained and nauseous in his arms. He hadn't expected to feel so awful from a simple toss. Ray explains his own father did this when he was small and thinks little Arte is enjoying it. But the poor baby is nearly throwing up as his father spins him like a tornado until stopped by his wife, making the boy almost vomit. During this play, Gray bumps the boy's knee on furniture, tears welling in his eyes, summoning monstrous fury towards his progenitor until his crying finally starts. Alice picks him up and uses the chance to scold her husband, who stands in the corner. She says she'll fix the injury and creates a light in her palm, casting it over the wound, healing it. Lifting him high, she says that should feel better, making Arte think this world holds much more in store, with so much left to uncover. In his past life, he was a king who led armies and won duels against representatives from countries worldwide. Still, after so many achievements, he'd never felt as proud as now, for he could crawl very well alone. Alice tells her husband not to let him hit his head on the corner. Ray asks his wife to block the path to the bookshelf. But then the baby ends up face to face with the mirror, marveling at his own reflection. His parents, too, are equally amazed. Yet in his mind, the baby thinks he still hasn't gotten used to the name given to him, believing Art is far too cute for an ancient king. Although looking in the mirror, he must admit how adorable he is. Chuckling mischievously internally, he tells the girls to brace for heartbreak while his parents laugh beside him. Come nightfall, Art is sleeping and receives a goodnight kiss from his mother as she leaves the room, wishing the boy sweet dreams. But this was all a lie. Actually, he was awake with his mother gone. It was time to begin his mission. He rises, sits up, grabs his blanket, and throws it down, then strains to vault his crib. He throws himself, landing softly where his mother had placed it. thinking he was asleep. Now he had about an hour before she returned. Exiting his room, he encounters his mother humming while washing dishes. His goal was close. Time to proceed at full speed. Reaching the side room, he checks for occupants and sees many books scattered. Immediately after, he clenches his fist tightly, celebrating his success. Seeing the bookshelf present, he explains that since discovering this spot, he's been sneaking here to learn about the world. This is Katen, the continent where he lives and was born, home to 3 great kingdoms. Helenoir, the Elven Kingdom, deep within the forest. Darv, the vast underground realm and home of the Ains. Lastly, Sapien, the human kingdom and easily the most populous region. Both this world and his previous one share a monarchy system, but ruling rights there aren't seized. He'd noticed long ago this place is much less developed than his former world. Opening a book, he flips pages until finding where he left off. In the world he came from, there was a vital force called K, wielded by practitioners to fortify their bodies and weapons through rigorous training. This world has a similar force named Mana. However, unlike Kai existing solely within a person, Mana permeates everywhere. The power to control Mana is mostly genetic. Usually only 1 in 100 people possess this ability. Reading this, the poor boy complains he's roasted due to his diaper. But anyway, Mana can be used in various ways. The 2 most efficient forms are conjuration and enhancement. In the first, Mana is incorporated into the body, boosting strength, agility, and defense. Yet its weakness is limited range. In the second form, Mana is emitted outward, enabling environmental manipulation. But this also requires using surrounding mana to complete the spell. Alice is what they call a deviant, specifically an emitter, a rare mage type capable of conjuring unique healing mana. According to this book, a mage's awakening happens between puberty's start and adolescence's end. When mana cores manifest, the core is strangely similar to a K center. Forming one requires meditating to sense particles scattered through the body and gathering them into a single point. So the infant boy decides to try and begins meditating. Astonishingly, it works. He starts forming a core. But unexpectedly, his mother interrupts, grabbing him right then, saying she found him and was worried. Picking him up, she senses something odd, questioning if the little boy is struggling to poop. Art complains, declaring he's about to start his journey to become an amazing mage, but accidentally lets out a tiny fart. This makes Alice conclude she was mistaken and better change him quickly. During all that concentration, he really dirtied his diaper, but it served a purpose, as magic's presence here causes the technological lag. In the house study, Alice was there studying, taking a book, dipping a quill pen into the inkwell. She started writing 2 years ago. Still, each passing day, she seems to learn more about her baby. This led her to conclude Arthur must be the cutest baby alive, with his soft little brown hair and sky blue eyes that watch her almost intelligently. She knows if she doesn't become a reliable, strict mother, he'll get into trouble later. And it's not like she can trust her husband. Sometime later, someone is shaking a twig. The woman, glancing aside, saw her baby carrying a stick like a sword, while her husband was literally teaching the child to fight. This was swiftly halted by her terrifying glare, as she writes in her book. She mentions catching the ray, attempting to teach the infant combat skills when the poor thing could barely crawl. Apparently, young Art loves being carried to the merchant street on her back, getting quite excited passing each shop, especially the weapon store. Consequently, rather than buying supplies once or twice weekly, they visit the town center every other day. Spotting a mage practicing magic, they pause to watch, leaving the young baby amazed. But to Alice, this isn't indulgence, rather a method of education. Seeing how quickly he grows, she imagines his adult self, but with Ray as his father, he'll likely aspire to be an adventurer. Yet she still worries, hoping only he fares better than foolish youth seeking adventure or fame. Currently, her main concern is handling his habit of sneaking into the study. One option is moving his crib there, but that's for another day. Finishing her diary entry, she leaves the study. Young Art, now 2, stands at the window, watching his father outside removing gloves. Since first visiting the study, he's learned much, finding it fascinating to learn more daily. His father outside chants something, but it's unclear. As he extends his arms toward stones, they slowly levitate before him. This piques the boy's curiosity, wondering what magical feat his father will perform. Ray then lifts the stones overhead, giving the baby a hint of what's coming. Watching his father levitate the stones, the boy sees his total concentration during a very impressive motion. Yet finally, Ray merely tosses the stones back down. An extremely disappointing outcome after such buildup. Still, the adventurer looks at his son in the window, full of himself, declaring he's amazing. But Art is just disappointed, having waited through 3 minutes of chanting and focus for such nonsense while being head-patted. His mother asks if he washed his dad, then immediately notices he ruined the garden. Ray picks up his gloves and puts them on. Meanwhile, the baby reflects. He discovered early his father is a fortifier, so he's curious what he'll be when his mana core awakens. Taking a deep breath, the adventurer prepares for serious training. As soon as he hears a leaf hit the ground, his eyes snap open, and he starts striking the air with consecutive kicks, elbow strikes causing booms, and a spinning vertical strike creating a whirlwind. Finishing his routine, his son watching it all, he smiles, turns, and decides to do something else, but notices something. Seeing the height to get down, he's terrified of falling and getting hurt. He freezes, staring at his shadow. Then very carefully, he kneels and starts climbing down. Seeing this, Alice interprets the boy's effort as tiredness, picks him up saying he needs a nap. But Art has another idea, wanting to study mana more, telling his mother he wants books, but being told it's bedtime. Maybe later, but that's not acceptable to Art. So pushing his mother aside for space, he looks up cutely, clasping hands, begging her to let him read books. His cuteness shines so brightly it nearly blinds her. She pushes him away momentarily. This causes an internal conflict, making her shake with frustration, but she finally gives in, letting him play a little in the study. Afterwards, she tries convincing herself she's not a doting mother, merely aiding his development, while Art concludes that in war, anything goes to win. Finally, having gotten a book to read, while his mother watches smiling, she hears a noise outside and runs off, hoping her husband didn't break a tree, telling Art she'll be back. Art seizes the moment and starts meditating. His greatest achievement, beyond knowledge, is his progress forming a mana core. He spent the last 2 years moving tens of thousands of tiny mana fragments within his body, painstakingly gathering them near his solar plexus. This helps him understand why natural formation takes until adolescence, seeing how slowly these fragments drift to his body's center. It's arduous labor, taxing both his body and mind. However, those 2 years weren't wasted as he nears his goal of forming a core. Outside, Alice brings her husband a glass of water. He actually managed to chop down a tree. This becomes amusing to her, however, because he's hugging the trunk. Meanwhile, Art gains another fragment. Suddenly, an explosion rocks their home, causing Ray to sprint towards his wife. He catches her, shielding her with his body from the flying debris, enduring the blast until it subsides. As the smoke clears, he asks if Alice is okay, but her first thought is their baby inside. Remembering instantly, she screams in despair that R is still in there. Simultaneously, her husband is utterly shocked. Clenching his jaw, he rushes into the fire and rubble to save their son. Finally pushing debris aside, he sees something ahead, leaving him stunned and speechless. Alice arrives asking what happened. He replies it must be a joke, the boy isn't even 3. Yet looking at the child, he floats meditating amidst the ruins, landing once spotted. The boy thinks he feels great, grasping the sensation of having a mana core. Looking forward, even the trees seem greener, making him sense something odd and wonder. Trees? Then surveying the wreckage, he questions what exactly happened to his house. Who dared attack a king's home? Later in a room, the protagonist reflects much change in the last year. Apart from rebuilding, his mother teaches him reading, writing, and mana basics. Initially, since his small body couldn't strain, they did basic exercises like running, sit-ups, and push-ups. But recently, since his 3rd birthday, his father allowed practice with a wooden sword. Reading a book, Ray enters announcing training time, breaking his study focus. The adventurer tells him to recall his lesson. He adds the boy must channel mana flow with his breath, as the mana core, like heart and lungs, is an organ. This makes the boy wonder if other children his age would grasp such an abstract explanation. Without delay, the child adopts a combat stance, attacking his father wielding a stick. They exchange blows, but Art lands a hit. Ray encourages him, saying he'll succeed, noting his father won't let him rest until he does. Not wanting to waste free time before dinner, he concentrates. Then he opens his eyes. As his father watches, he charges fiercely, striking the reinforced stick and splitting it, astonishing Ray. Simultaneously, the stick flies away. Finally, after surprising his father, he asks if he can now go to the study, permission granted. Back in his room, the child meditates. He explains a mana core's power is gauged by color, starting naturally as black due to blood and impurities mixed with mana particles. It purifies as these are filtered over time. The order is black, red, orange, yellow, silver, white. Each stage has 3 shades: dark, solid, light. The lighter, the purer and more powerful. His reflection is interrupted by his mother calling him to dinner, annoying him. At the table, everyone eats, but a background metal clinking bothers Ray. This is Art, frustrated at lacking private time, unable to study properly while eating alone. So Ray tells his wife their son needs a proper mentor. Alice protests, saying their son is only 4, while an army of carrots hurls spears. Casting a lightning bolt, Ray says he promised to train him. Wearing armor, Art agrees but states he never imagined such a prodigy, hence doesn't want to limit his potential before being blasted by the attack. But actually, all this was just their imagination. In real life, the two only debate, with Alice stating she won't allow her son to go to a city kilometers away. But Ray argues that Xyrus isn't just any city, and he'll ensure his friend watches over him. Meanwhile, poor Art is simply exhausted by this debate, yet his parents keep arguing nonstop. Finally, the situation shifts and they both turn to him, his father asking if he wants to go to a big city and train with a real teacher. To the child, this seems a bit much, considering he's theoretically still 4 years old. After swallowing his food, he just asks if his parents could go together to meet the teacher. They glance at each other awkwardly, making Art wonder if he said something wrong or was hard to understand. But his father happily announces the whole family's apparently going to Xyrus. So the 3 prepare for a 3-week trip. In his room, Art opens a book to resume studying, searching for something, but his mother catches him and orders him to sleep as they leave early tomorrow. Art asks why it's so sudden, and his mother explains she also hates rushing things. However, some friends of theirs, the Horn twins, are heading there tomorrow too, so they must hurry to catch a ride with the group. Giving him a goodnight kiss, she warns him not to get caught studying again and says he can take books tomorrow to read during the journey. While trying to sleep, he reflects that the team consists of 2 conjurers and 3 strengtheners. That should suffice for any problem occurring. He feels happy finally leaving Peaceful Village to see what the world truly offers. Arriving at the meeting point, they encounter a group of friends waving. Immediately, Ray hugs one friend, thanking him for the ride, then introduces his son, requesting Art present himself formally with a bow. He introduces himself as Artur Levin and thanks them for accompanying them to Xyrus. A red-haired man carrying a spear places a hand on Art's head. He asks if they're sure this kid is Ray's son. This is Adam Krins, a spear-specialized strengthener. Next, Art is grabbed by someone else, this time a woman hugging him tightly, calling him cute. This is Angela Rose, a wind-specialized conjurer. But thanks to this, he can't breathe, being saved by someone pulling him away, saying the lady is hurting him. The poor boy is terrified. The one who grabbed him is a giant named Durden Walker, an earth-specialized conjurer. Placing Art down and brushing him off, the boy sees him as a big, gentle old guard dog. Looking aside, Art notices a girl sitting on the fence. This is Jasmine Flamesverdi, a dual-dagger specialized strengthener who merely waves and heads to the caravan. Someone arrives behind him, saying not to worry, as it's just the girl's way. Extending her hand, the woman introduces herself as Ellenshard, a magical archery specialized strengthener. Now everyone is properly introduced, Ray says to depart. Everyone loads the luggage into the wagons, even with some effort. Now fully ready, they finally set off with 2 wagons. In the back, Art happily watches the scenery, knowing his journey is beginning. During the trip after sunset, the group hunted some thorn wolves to then make grilled dog meat. After setting up camp and roasting the meat, little Art finds himself bored. Helen asks if he's tired and he agrees. The girl says it's okay to feel that way since it's his first trip like this. Extremely annoyed, he says that might be it, but he actually did this in his other life. Helen sits beside him, asking if what his father said was true, that he awakened about a year ago. Starting a conversation, Adam observes. Then approaching Ray, Adam says he needs to exercise before sleeping and asks if he can play a little with his son, though Art just thinks if Adam wants that, he should do it himself. Ray permits it, but says to be careful, as they've only just moved from basic strengthening to combat training. So against his will, the little boy is pulled away by the adventurer, carried like a sack of potatoes. He reflects how absurd it is they allow such a thing. In a spot farther away, the 2 prepare, and Adam asks if Art is ready. After stretching slightly, The boy also takes a stance. The adventurer asks if the child knows how to strengthen his weapon, and emanating a fierce tiger aura, prepares to attack. Glancing sideways, he saw everyone else calm and unconcerned about the situation. Only his mother was visibly distressed, terrified of seeing him get hurt. Trying to leverage his connection with his father, he sent frantic telepathic signals, warning that the red-haired man intended to consume even his soul. But his oblivious father merely looked excited, enthusiastically cheering the boy on to give it his all. Seeing that Ray was useless, the boy had no choice but to focus completely and pour everything he had into the fight. Drawing on all the knowledge from his past life, he tightened his grip on the wooden sword. Channeling mana from his core, he infused the weapon with energy and charged towards his opponent, who responded with a grin. Witnessing the boy's aggressive advance, the redhead shifted into a defensive stance. As the sword came close, he was startled when the small boy slipped past his guard, appearing behind him. However, the boy lost momentum for his attack, slipping due to the limitations of his childish body. Observing this, the redhead was momentarily alarmed, then broke into another smile. Undeterred, the child, still channeling energy into his sword, launched another attack. Just as he delivered what he thought was a decisive slash, believing he had hit the redhead, he was shocked to see his opponent evade with a swift 180-degree turn. The redhead immediately countered with a strike. The boy dodged by, ducking low, then seeing an opening, surged upwards to deliver a headbutt to the ribs. This knocked his opponent down, leaving him vulnerable to an upward attack. In a desperate attempt to defend, the boy tried to land a kick, but the redhead, Art, quickly perceived the move and threw his body backward, avoiding the blow. Before the boy could recover, Art pressed forward again with a powerful spear thrust. The boy managed to block it with his sword. At that moment, the principle of equal and opposite reaction came into play. The tremendous impact force violently threw both combatants backward. The effect was worse for the child, who crashed hard onto the ground. Alice cried out in worry, and the poor boy complained about getting hurt. Yet he managed to scramble up just in time to see Durden smacking Adam lightly on the head for attacking too fiercely. The redhead turned to complain to Ray, demanding to know what kind of hellish training he'd put this little monster through. But the proud father just claimed he hadn't taught those moves. His mother, furious while healing him, demanded if this was what he'd been studying. The boy claimed he learned it all from books and watching his father, though his explanation wasn't very convincing. Art even joked, saying he wanted lessons on those movement techniques himself. The little boy tried to explain how he used his legs and mana, but when Jasmine attempted to mimic it, she just fell flat on her face. The boy offered weak encouragement. "Almost got it," while Adam himself ended up face-planting into a tree trying the move, embedding his head slightly in the trunk and giving a shaky thumbs up. Many days had passed since that spar. Now the group was relaxing, bathing under a waterfall. During this time, the boy's birthday had also quietly come and gone. Someone approached him holding a dagger. It was Jasmine, who actually presented him with a gift as thanks for his lessons. Adam was bathing in the small pool, while in the background Ray and Helen chatted happily about something. Training with the three warriors had continued with decent progress. As they were discussing this, Durden was suddenly thrown right on top of Ada, basically crushing him, with Ray jumping on the pile right after. To Art's surprise, Jasmine had actually managed to learn some of the techniques the boy taught, especially the feigning step. While the group enjoyed themselves, this progress genuinely astonished Art. In the background, Ray snatched Durden and Ada's clothes and bolted away. After bathing, everyone dried off and prepared to depart. Alice informed her son they were leaving, and he readily agreed without a second thought. They resumed their journey, now traveling across rocky terrain. Along the way, Adam talked to Art and reminisced about how his father always got them into all sorts of trouble. But Art quickly shut that down, burned his tape, retorting that Adam caused plenty of trouble himself. Embarrassed, Adam decided to change the subject. Suddenly, Alice began to cough. Art asked if she was all right, and she replied she was just a little tired, though this left him concerned. He soon reopened his book and started reading. However, he began to feel something strange, a heavy, oppressive sensation that unsettled him. Looking to the side, he saw Jasmine drying herself off, her eyes shining with eagerness to learn more. The boy just ignored her and went back to his book, but a sudden jolt from the wagon interrupted him. Alice questioned what had happened. Bandits! Everyone quickly prepared for combat. Angela began conjuring her wind magic. Alice threw herself in front of her son, acting as a human shield. Arrows flew towards the wagon, but were stopped by the explosive gust of air Angela created. Strangely, the attack didn't frighten the boy. It just made him pensive. Jasmine, however, had fire in her eyes as she leaped down from the carriage, absolutely itching to lick the enemy, clearly meaning she was desperate to unleash her skills on them. Ray equally snaps one of the arrows with his hand, while Dudon grips his staff, preparing to clash. Adam also adopts a combat stance, although poor Helen was struck by a few arrows, though not fatally. Landing from the wagon's high leap, he touches down carrying his bow, readying a shot. Seeing this, Art realizes they are now completely surrounded. The criminals use the high ground to fire arrows while others creep through the grass. Worst of all is a monstrous creature wielding an axe with a muscular build. He announces they've caught good prey. This is the beast bandit leader ordering them to spare only the women and children alive, preferably unmarked, to preserve their value. Witnessing this, Art feels he lived in a bubble too long, nearly forgetting everyone carries darkness, making him ponder the phrase, "damage the merchandise." The boy firmly grips his weapon, feeling a surge of destructive rage. But noticing this, Alicia hugs him, telling him not to worry as she's here. This shifts him from wild fury to calm. Enemy archers start shooting. The adventurers brace to defend as Durden forms a stone barrier, starting small but quickly becoming a massive wall. Still, some arrows penetrate it, heading for Art and his mother, but Angela uses her magic to shield them. Melee bandits advance into position and begin firing. He hits some criminals, but their leader blocks. However, it doesn't end there, as Ray leaps off the wall toward the thugs, landing right amidst the enemy group, punching one so hard the ground caves. Spotting foes behind him, he dashes forward at high speed, striking each one down along the way. But one, thinking himself clever, tries a sneak attack from behind, stopped by an arrow through his chest, fired by Helen as Ray waves and she nods back. The brawl continues with Jasmine attacking alongside Adam and Adam prodding from another side. Sensing something, Adam almost takes a heavy blow, but dodges in time, using his planted foot to thrust his sword, repeatedly stabbing the reckless fool, leaving him exhausted. Meanwhile, Jasmine plays hopscotch on their shoulders, darting about. She clings to thugs' necks like tree branches, leaping to the next after downing one. Noticing something, she sees a whip-wielding man behind a soldier, dodging his strike while simultaneously tearing off another thug's leg, landing promptly. He taunts her, saying he'll train her to never leave him. Concentrating, she dodges a sequence of attacks, escaping each one, but getting slightly wounded by a few. Seeing this, Arte realizes his friend is disadvantaged by the whip's reach. Can he help? He can't picture himself fighting a strong adult in this child's body, but with no time to think, something flies towards them, smashing the wagon. It was Ray, hit by an immensely powerful blow, making him bleed from the mouth. This worries Alicia, but Art has been itching to crush someone. Seeing that monster approach, he asks his mother to heal his father, but something's wrong, and she says she can't. Ray comforts her, saying those wounds aren't life-threatening. Still, she tries. He then explains to Arte that once Alicia uses healing magic, the bandits will target her. He could handle them, but not while protecting both Arte and Alicia, so Arte must take his mother away, retracing their path. But the boy refuses to leave his father, saying he can fight. This makes Ray smile, ruffling the boy's hair, telling him to listen. He knows Arte can fight, which is why he's entrusting Alicia to him, asking him to also protect the baby inside her. Now it all made sense. His father's care for her, her comments. His mother was pregnant. Touching his head, Ray to tell him in Syros, but now there's no time. Arte grasps his father's hand and, needing no further explanation, says he can count on him to protect his mother. King tells his son to get ready while Alicia heals, and the boy already holds his sword. The adventurer warns that the enemy has 4 mages. At that moment, the bandit leader spots the healer in the group and immediately orders his men to focus on them. Without delay, Art grabs his mother and sprints away, praying his father survives. Adam guides them correctly but spots something odd, a bandit charging behind them. Adam moves to shield them, shouting he'll hold the attacker off. Separated from them, an archer takes aim at the boy. Suddenly, Art feels a chill. Turning, he sees the arrow speeding toward him. He uses his wooden sword to deflect the attack, putting all his strength into the parry. The weapon shatters in the process, injuring his hands. This impresses the archer, who is then struck by an arrow, fired by Helen, who urges the pair not to stop. Running with his mother, Art realizes something's wrong. There should be 4 mages. One is the whip user, the second is the dual axe wielder, the third is the bandit leader himself. But where's the last? The raider leader yells at Adam to abandon the plan and orders him not to let the healer escape alive. Wondering who Brutamonte is addressing, Art notices something strange forming in the distance. A growing water bubble. Cursing mentally as he runs, he recognizes it as a massive water sphere conjured by the fourth mage, who hurls it toward the boy and his mother. They lack time to evade together. This forces Art into a swift, harsh decision. He stops abruptly and spins toward his mother. Silently apologizing for hurting her, he shoves her clear to safety, leaving her panicked. But quickly, the protagonist draws something from his bag. Knowing he can't defeat the mage, he resolves to take him down too. He throws a knife tied to a mana rope just as the water blast hits him. However, the thrown knife pierces the distant mage, binding him with the rope. Art yanks it taut. As he falls, Art prays the mana thread won't snap. Both are flung toward a cliff edge while Alice tries desperately to save her son. Clinging to the mana line, Art's fall halts momentarily. The bandit had caught the cliff's edge. Sadly, the ground crumbled under their weight, and both plunged into the forest below. In a desperate bid, Durden forms a giant stone hand to catch the boy, but they were already too far. With a smile, Art feels joy seeing everyone else was safe, yet he weeps. He'd always wanted to be an older brother. In his past life, young Arte was known as King Gray. Waking in his vast bedroom, he climbs down from his bed. Opening the door, he encounters a woman greeting him. He then walks a long hallway to a massive door, trailed by maidservants, until meeting a man inside an office. It was an elderly man with long gray hair, shocked to see him there. The king pauses, studying wall portraits. One depicted an old group of advisors. Gray explains this council truly governed the nation's politics and economy. In a world plagued by low birth rates and scarce resources, wars were replaced by duels and armies by kings. He was one. The old advisor observes his king admiring his handiwork and admits that while council work is rewarding, he envies the glory kings earned from victories. He finally asks Gray's reason for visiting. Gray retrieves something inside his robe, lifting a medal. He places it on the desk and states he's retiring, then walks away. Malorna chases after the king, begging him to wait, but the champion reflects. He'd dedicated his entire life to becoming stronger, yet it felt purposeless. He was an orphan who lost everyone he loved. He'd surrender it all for a chance to return to his cherished life and see them again. An image of his family and the Twin Horns group flashing in his mind. Back in the present, little Art awakens. He's lying on a forest floor, wondering where he is and how he survived. His bag rests nearby. Glancing aside, he spots a knife impaled in something. The mage who attacked him, now broken on the ground, the blade embedded in what seems his leg. Seeing this brutal scene sickens Art, making him vomit. He passes out again, later woken by a leaf falling on his face. Brushing it off, he looks again at his water flask and bag holding some fruit. With great effort, he painfully drags himself closer to his belongings and starts gathering the fallen fruit from his bag. He then consumes them and drinks the water, attempting to recover, dropping the canteen as intense pain racks his body before swiftly falling asleep after silently thanking the meal. A little more time passes, and once more, the boy is awakened by the sound of circling Urobusos. The child strains to rise, but fails and collapses to the ground again. Taking a deep breath, he focuses on channeling his mana core throughout his entire body, managing finally to stand using every last drop of energy he possesses. Finally upright, he glances at his bag on the ground, grabs it, and prepares to leave. He recalls the knife embedded in the bandit's corpse, and summoning considerable courage, wrenches it free from his own body. However, still weak, he collapses from the exertion. Looking back at the spot where he fell leaves him awestruck at having survived. Now one question lingers. How much time has passed since his fall? And where is he now? The only certainty is that he must keep moving. After walking a short distance, he hears a voice expressing surprise at seeing him awake, confusing the boy. Hearing this, he instantly conceals himself behind a tree and wonders if the voice emanates from the corpse. He is promptly asked if his wounds are all right. The poor boy dreads what he'll do if the dead man rises. Trembling with fear and using a stick, he tries poking it, but the voice laughs and tells him not to sweat it. That guy is history. This brings relief, but he immediately thinks he cannot trust this schizophrenia, however gentle the voice sounds. Brandishing the knife, he questions if it saved him and who it is, but only a rabbit darts away. He finally receives a reply. Yes, she saved him, but he'll only see her if he comes to her dwelling. The kid remarks she seems very confident he'll follow and is told there's no other way out, for only she knows the path home. This reminds him of his father, mother, and little twin-horn brother, worrying if they are safe and reach Zerusa. Changing his tone politely, he addresses his rescuer as Sir Voice, asking if he might trouble him for directions to meet. A sound echoes and she comments he catches on quick, but scolds him for saying Sir, as it's a lady's voice. Nevertheless, she agrees to help. This leaves him slightly puzzled. Before he can think further, the voice does something affecting his eyes, dropping him painfully to the ground. Instantly, the boy experiences a vision zooming closer onto a stone embedded deep in the forest, seemingly marking an entrance. The voice then urgently warns him to move fast, as it's safer to depart while his condition is clearer. Feeling some pain, he can't help wondering what magic the voice used to save him from the fall, how she knew he was falling, and why only he was rescued. Yet the harder he tried to find an explanation, the more questions arose. After walking a fair distance, he hears running water. Heading towards the sound, he hopes it's what he thinks. Finally climbing a rock, he sees it indeed is, as he believed, a river. He excitedly plunges in, washing his clothes and injured body while whistling cheerfully. The voice speaks to him, noting he seems quite carefree, causing him to cover himself with the washing garment. But the voice states there isn't much to see anyway. Stabbing his small ego, he puts on his torn clothes, convincing himself they're just words, and as a king, he shouldn't be affected. The poor kid is hurt. The voice then says she didn't mean to scare him and tells him to stop pouting. The boy retorts his body is merely underdeveloped. Following the river, he drinks some water and eats a few fruits. Gazing upwards, he thinks that from the fall side, it should be near elven territory, yet he sees none of the characteristic mist. His fear of encountering great beasts while traversing the forest was entirely unfilled, meeting only small animals. He's even surprised no mana beasts dwell in a place so mana-rich. It's a shame he can't stay to absorb some, especially needing to return to his parents. With his mother pregnant, the stress of his death could harm the baby, assuming they still live. After a while, the boy finally reaches the voice's location, who expresses happiness at seeing him arrive safely. Squeezing a stuck branch, the stone says it's a pleasure to meet her, but she states that, however interesting he is, it isn't a cluster of rocks and can be found inside the fissure, emitting a bright green light. Stepping inside, he swallows hard but chooses to press forward, trusting he'll be home soon. Walking a short way within the place, the voice cautions him to watch his step, but it's already too late. He missteps, plunging into a hole covered by glowing plants and falling a great distance, finally crashing face first onto the ground, battered but alive. The poor, injured boy thinks a warning about falling 2 stories would have been nice, but without crying, he gets up, dusts off his clothes, and looking ahead, notices something. He gets such a fright that he falls backward onto his bottom, terrified. He questions what it is, seeing a kind of black armor seated on a throne before him. The creature owned the mysterious voice, stating they'd finally met. She stands up. She is a woman so tall her horns scrape the cavern ceiling. Treachery is a real pain. I understand her. Walking toward the young Art, she leaves him panicked, seeing the whole situation. Extending her hand toward him, she says insects will fly into his mouth if he keeps it open. This makes him snap it shut immediately, almost without thought. But in the end, she merely offers her hand, helps him up, and says it will take some time to open a portal strong enough to get him home. However, special plants there can nourish him until then. A bit calmer, the boy thanks her and starts wandering the area, observing the plants. Approaching one, he thinks it looks good, but seeing his reflection in the fruit's shiny surface reminds him of his parents, making him slightly worried. However, he soon snaps back to reality only to feel something sniffing his neck, making him shiver. It was the owner of the mysterious voice, saying the other fruit tastes better, causing him to drop his food. The poor boy, all dirty, says he understands and soon picks another fruit to eat beside his savior. Looking at the giant beside him, he finally asks if there's a better way to address her, and she introduces herself as Sylvia. Curious, the boy asks if he can ask some questions. She claims no problem, but might not answer them all. His initial fear of the giant had vanished, and gradually he asked the questions, filling his head since he woke up. What place was this? Where did she come from? Why was she alone? How did she get that wound? And why had she saved him? The first question is easy. This place is a narrow area residing between the Beast Glade and the Elry Forest. No one knows of it, as she drove away anyone coming near. Though such cases are rare, him being the first to enter her domain. Noticing Sylvia calls him Arthur, the boy asks her to call him Art, as his family uses this shortened form. The giant agrees and answers she's alone because there is no one else, for she has many enemies, desperately wanting something she possesses, gaining the mentioned wound in her last battle just before escaping. The reason for saving him might be she was moved by the child's courage, or just loneliness, as even she doesn't know, warning she will withdraw because her wound pains her, and she needs rest to work on the dimensional portal tomorrow. The boy wishes her good night and says after the black creature leaves, he can't stop thinking how lonely she seemed. Before finally resting, Sylvia states she cannot see how far his relatives and friends went, but informs him they are safe if he still worries. This surprises him momentarily. Then his eyes fill with tears, his head down and mouth trembling, finally making him cry with a smile on his face, thanking her. While there, Art and Sylvia spent much time together talking about all sorts of subjects and things when she wasn't working on the portal. Hours became days and days became weeks spent in each other's company. And though Sylvia never spoke of her own life, he slowly began to understand what kind of person this mysterious being was. Inside the cave, the boy meditated, nurturing his mana atop a rock. Opening his eyes, he thinks his friend embodies the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." Contrary to the impression her appearance gave, the giantess was gentle, kind, patient, and mild. Noticing something, the giantess asks if the boy has eaten dinner yet. She then says the fruits he picked are extremely tasty and rarely grow elsewhere. Holding the fruit, the boy said it reminded him of his mother when she was kind and gentle, but also scolded him when he was wrong. Thinking of this brought back something unpleasant. For once, he expressed his hatred for bandits, believing they deserved horrible deaths. With a face full of hate, he thinks he will hunt them, but at that very moment, the giantess's hand approaches and flicks him, sending him flying to crash on the ground. The boy asks what that was, and Sylvia explains he probably wasn't wrong about the bandits deserving death, as she even chose not to save the wizard who fell with him for the same reason. However, letting his heart be consumed by hatred and revenge like this will only hurt him. Instead, he should be proud to be alive and always keep moving forward. He will face many misfortunes again in the future, but shouldn't let sadness and hatred fester in his mind, as only then will he be truly victorious. Seeing a bruise on the child's forehead, she asks if she hit him too hard. Being taught morals and life by a figure who seemed the epitome of evil, for some strange reason, deeply affected him. Artie's thought is interrupted by Sylvia calling him. She questions why he isn't eating the fruit. The boy simply replies he's lost in thought. Looking closely at the giantess, he comments her wound seems to be worsening, but she says that injury flares up periodically, though the boy wonders if that's true. Changing the subject, she decides to ask him something, knowing humans awaken around age 12 or 13. She questions how the boy developed his mana core, already being considered capable of using it more efficiently than many full mages. The boy says his parents told him he's a genius. Then the giantess warns he will be able to learn something, and stepping back, walks while absorbing mana from the area, saying if he's good enough, he can even do this while fighting. Excited, Art asks how his friend does it. Smiling, she says humans have a very linear mindset regarding mana, and asks him to start with small movements, getting used to it until reaching that point. The boy looks at his hands and tries absorbing mana while clenching his fist, but fails. He explains it's easier said than done, but Sylvia counters that mana beasts learn this naturally. Since humans awaken so late, their bodies can't multitask like this, adding that doesn't apply to the boy, so with great effort, he should succeed. Smiling, this excites him, so he promises to do his best, making the giantess laugh. That's it for today. If you liked the video and want a part 2, comment, like, and share so we can keep bringing you quality videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.